Welcome back to Just Scrap Radio on BJPen.com. I'm your host, Cole Shelton. Episode 136 is live ahead of UFC Singapore on Saturday night. Obviously, a bit difficult to get some guys with a lot of them not speaking English. So, just two fighters on the show. We're going to be first joined by Parker Porter to preview his main card fight against Junior Tafa. This is a really interesting one. Obviously, Parker fought Junior's brother, Justin, earlier this year, lost by first round knockout, ended up getting that first round knockout over practice with back in May. And now he's heading back to Singapore. He said the experience in Australia is actually a big one, learning how to deal with that travel and the time change. And he thinks he's going to have a lot better performance against Junior, who he's really excited to fight and kind of get one back because he thinks that obviously Junior is going to have a lot of confidence after seeing his older brother get that knockout win. And then we close things out talking to Fernie Garcia to preview his fight against Rina Nakamura. This is do or die for Fernie Garcia. 0-2 in the UFC, back-to-back decision losses to Brady Heaston in his debut, Journey Newson, which was kind of a fight Fernie probably should have won, but he now gets Rina Nakamura, who's 7-0, coming off winning the road to the UFC. And then in his debut, knocked out Kazma in 33 seconds. A lot of first round finishes. He's very dangerous knockouts. Garcia is a very durable guy. He's tough to put out. All three of his losses are by decision. But Fernie has a lot of confidence. He's about to prove the world wrong and shock a lot of people. But be sure to share the show, subscribe, and tune in next week for another episode of Just Scrap Radio. All right, we're joined by UFC heavyweight Parker Porter, who's going out to Singapore. Parker, how's it going, man?
Good, man. How you been?
I've been well. Obviously, you've been no stranger to traveling. Like you did Australia earlier this year. Now you had to go to Singapore. Like, was this something you wanted to do, or is it just happened to be the date they offered you?
It just happened to be the date they offered me, and I was really hoping to be on that Boston card.
Mhm.
Um, but you know, it is what it is. You go where the boss man says to go.
Were you surprised not be on that Boston card? Because like after Rob moved up to fight Corey, like there is kind of no real like locals or guys around there to be on that card.
Yeah, that was a little disappointing. They didn't have any local guys on the card in their own hometown, so to speak. But these kind of things happen. It's just the nature of the business. Unfortunately, guys get shuffled around. Somebody's ready, not ready. Injuries happen. So you just got to kind of roll with the punches on it.
Another long flight out to Singapore. Like, how much do you rely on the experience of Australia to kind of figure out how to get your way and like kind of just the time change and all that?
Actually, that was a really good learning experience when it came to that stuff. Because it's the same time zone as Perth. It's just like pretty much 5 hours north of the flight, so it's going to be a little bit less travel time, which will be nice. Instead of about 29 hours total travel time, it should be about 22. Because we actually ended up having a layover in Singapore when we were on our way over to Australia. So that's going to be a little helpful. But the nice thing is that we figured out that it's a lot easier getting adjusted going there than it is coming back.
Mhm.
Going there, we got adjusted in like a day. One of the big things is to just kind of like make sure you stay awake as best you can and not sleep too much, and try to get yourself to sleep right on time at the appropriate time when you get there. But coming back, man, I was jacked up for like 4 days, and I thought it was just me. And I talked to my coaches in the corner, and they were going through the same thing. It was just like brutal coming back.
So with that, like, do you just then get right on Singapore time, like right away then, like how you did in Australia, or are you gonna try to stay local then?
No, I'm gonna try to be right on their time because as far as I understand, it's gonna be fighting on their local time
Yeah.
type deal. Anyways, it'll be like super early card over here, back home. Um, but yeah, I'm not gonna be trying to fight the time change too much.
Yeah, I imagine you'll probably be fighting like 3 to probably 5 a.m. around here, like around that time, I imagine, because I
Yeah,
know they're
yeah, it's
early.
it's it's pretty wild because Singapore is 13 hours ahead, I believe, if not 12. Um, but yeah, it'll basically be like if it's 13 hours, if it's like a 6 p.m. fight over there, then it'll be like a 5 a.m. fight over
Mhm.
here.
And then Junior Toffa, like obviously the brother, like when you got this name, like were you excited, like a bit of chance of redemption, or like was it just another opponent to you?
A little bit of both, like everything's just the next guy on the path. But always looking for a shot at redemption on that. Like um, that obviously didn't go the way I was hoping it to. I was a lot more prepared than I got the opportunity to show, and I made one little mistake against a guy with a lot of power in his hands, and I paid the price for it.
Uh, Going into this one, like, what's like the mindset and confidence like compared to the fight in Australia? Like, obviously, you're coming off the loss to Almeida this time around, coming off like a pretty one-sided first round finish. Like, is there a big change for you, like your mindset and confidence wise, going to this one compared to the fight in Australia?
Um, I definitely more confident, but it's not just from the win. That's just from the changes that we made after the Australia fight, with training schedule, training routines, and just general discipline overall.
Did you get a new deal? Because I remember you saying, wasn't that
I did.
last one like the last fight on your deal?
Yeah, I did. This is the first fight on a new contract.
Oh, was that a big relief in the UFC wanted to keep you around? Because you never know. Like they've
Absolutely.
caught guys after a win. Like they've told guys they don't want to resign after a win. Like were you worried that maybe they weren't going to resign you? Or were you pretty confident after that win?
Of course, there's always that. There's always a possibility, no matter how good you're doing, or wherever whatever's going on. At the end of the day, they're running a business, and they got to do what they think is the best overall for them, and everything going on. But I was really very happy, obviously, to get the opportunity to continue on, and show them that I can continue to grow and be a quality guy to have on the roster.
What is this? The third contract you signed? I've been trying to remember.
Third,
Third.
yep,
Yeah, is
it
that
is.
pretty crazy? Because I remember talking to you before the Dawkins fight, and like you thought like you just weren't going to fight in the UFC ever. Like you kind of thought that dream was
Yeah,
over. It's like, is it kind of
yeah.
crazy that you're
Before,
already on your eighth fight and third UFC contract?
it's pretty badass, actually. Yeah, it feels pretty great, because there was that waning period, during the pandemic, before that first contract, before the Dawkins fight, that I thought essentially my career was over, because it just wasn't the path that I had originally foreseen for myself, or anticipated. But roll with the punches, right?
And then with this one, like obviously Junior fights pretty similar to Justin. Like they're both kickboxers. Like, is training like pretty similar to what you did back in February when you're preparing for Justin?
Yeah, I would say so. It's just it's a little more intense. It's a little more amped up. Like I said, we've structured things a little bit more differently. We have some more specialized and focused training sessions than we did going into the first fight. So I think it's very very similar, but also very different.
Do you think he could have like a lot of like false sense of confidence just because like he saw how easy like Justin knocked out? He probably imagines he could probably just do the same thing. Like, do you think he's going to be coming overconfident into this one?
I think a lot of people were thinking that after the Taffa fight. I think my last opponent, Braxton Smith, was thinking the same thing, especially because all of his wins were by like one punch knockouts. Um, but I don't know. Like if he does have that overconfidence and the ability to do that and just make this kind of a quick one shot game over type fight, he'd be mistaken.
What did you make of his debut? I imagine you've watched it. Like Usman just kind of was able to just kind of control him and get a win like that,
Yeah,
like grind it out.
yeah. I thought I could see some holes in his wrestling abilities and his takedown defense, and really just not so much in his takedown defense, but just in his ability to control where he is in the octagon. Um, so we're gonna obviously be looking to exploit every chink in the armor we see.
Obviously, you don't have to get too into it, but like just studying Junior, like, do you think he's pretty similar to Justin, or do you think there is like noticeable like where he's stronger or weaker than what Justin was?
I think I think he's a pretty similar style. They uh, they're both primarily a kickboxing background. We don't see a ton of ground work out of either of them. So I think the biggest difference is that Justin's really really heavy handed, and he's proven that over already a couple of times.
And then going into this one, like with knowing like everything that's with the travel and like we kind of talked about earlier in the time, like with that, like does that just help like improve your like overall confidence of like just training? Like, do you train much out there when you get out there, like on fight week? Like you go out earlier to get accustomed, or is it just the usual kind of week you're out there?
It's pretty typical fight week.
Yeah.
You do the same thing. First day, especially with such a massive time zone difference. The first day is really just kind of like getting adjusted, shaking off the travel, the flight, the grogginess of all that, and getting on schedule. trying to take care of as much of the paperwork and all the other preliminary stuff that we have to do for poster signs and things like that as quick as possible. And then we just kind of chill and hit our usual 1 or 2 training sessions a day.
And then, did you have to cut any weight at this point anymore? Or is it still like, do you
No,
have to worry about the? I guess that's a big relief than not having to worry about the weight on that long flight.
major relief, especially traveling like this.
Yeah. With this one, like, how do you kind of see playing out? Like, obviously, I imagine Junior probably going for that first round knockout. Like, how do you kind of see it playing out?
Yeah, I think he's going to be trying for that first round knockout. Being lighter now, I'm definitely a lot more evasive. I'm able to cut pretty good angles and just be gone when you think I'm not. Definitely not as flat-footed and charging in like I was before, like just kind of a lumbering beast. But you know, um, yeah, I think he's going to probably be looking for that early finish, especially because his brother was able to get the same thing.
That is something I actually want to ask about, is because your last fight, you were like 15 pounds, something lighter than what you were with Tafa.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of changed for you to realize to get down lighter? Is it just something that just kind of naturally happened when you were training?
So it's something that I've been wanting to do since I got my first contract with UFC, and I just I didn't prioritize it because I was feeling good, I was moving good enough, and I was having success with my fights. And then after the Tafa fight, I finally was like, listen, I got to make that change. So I just really buckled down, stopped making excuses. My wife is a health coach with Optavia, so she did some programming for me and followed everything that she's got going for me, and it worked out perfectly.
Obviously, it is just one fight, but like, do you just kind of feel better overall, like in the gym and even in the fight? Like, you looked a lot better, but like, just how much do you think that's going to help you in these fights? Just not having carrying that extra weight.
It's definitely made me more explosive. I think even Cormier was commenting on the last fight, and he said, like he could be like one of these guys that now he's lighter, he could take a hit better. I think that actually is very true. I'm not quite as flat-footed, so I'm able to bounce and really flow and roll with things a little better. So I think that's going to be the biggest difference now too.
Did you worry about that? Like how your chin would react to get dropping that, or like how your power would translate, or was that, did you all think that would be fine cutting that weight?
So you're always worried about whether or not you're going to be able to take a hit the same way when you get lighter or bigger or whatever it may be. That's always, I feel like career wise, everybody's got like a certain number of punches they can handle before it's like, all right, your chin's just gone. But I was really excited and confident that the power would go up because obviously when you could throw a punch even faster, then it's gonna hit a lot harder.
Do you imagine you'll be right near that like 250 range you were last time then for this one?
Absolutely, yeah. I've been walking around at around 250, 253.
Just final thing, you get the win over Junior. Like, where do you think that puts you in division? Like, what do you think it does for you?
Um, I think it puts me in line for harder fights coming up. Potentially looking at guys that are closer to being ranked, or maybe even some ranked guys. Um, I haven't really gotten that far ahead because I don't look past the person in front of me. I don't want to shortchange or get any overlook anything. So I haven't thought too much about that, but you know, uh, I think it puts me in a good spot to fight some of the more challenging guys that aren't in the rankings yet.
Actually, just one more quick one. Like, if this is already your third fight this year, like you've had a pretty active year, end of August. Like, do you imagine this is it, or are you still hoping you can maybe squeeze one more and everything goes your way?
Um, Kind of depends. Like I wouldn't mind having a little bit of time to relax for the rest of the year and focus on some other things outside of training myself. I got a couple of guys at my gym that are looking to get on some fight cards. One of them even being my wrestling coach. So I'd like to be able to take more of a corner and coach role for the remainder of the year if possible. But I'm not going to say it's not a possibility for me to fight another time before the end of the year if everything goes well and smooth.
You staying in Singapore a bit later? Or do you just fly right back? Like, you get to check it out, or?
No, we're coming right back. Yeah, I got my kids start school like the following Monday, so
Oh
I got to
yeah.
make sure I'm back for first day of school.
Well, Parker, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this again.
No sweat, man. My pleasure.
All right, we're joined by UFC bantamweight Fernie Garcia, who's back in action at UFC Singapore. Fernie, how's it going, man?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, heading out to Singapore. Like that's the first question I got asked. Like, is this something you want, or is it just basically what they offered you?
It's what they offered me. I mean, I was ready to say yes to whatever they offered me, so this is it.
What do you think of having to go out there? Obviously, a long travel, but like a pretty cool experience. I'd imagine go out there. Like, not many people really go out there, other than
Mm,
like, and you're getting kind of paid to do it.
yeah, I was a little annoyed at first because I wanted to fight here in the States and have family and friends go and all that. But if I think about it, I'd rather fight there than at the Apex again. So I'm just glad that I'm in the front of a full stadium again. Well, arena.
And then with your opponent, like how in Rina Nakamura, like how familiar are you with him?
Well, now I'm pretty familiar. I haven't really heard of him before I got this fight. I wasn't really familiar with the road to the UFC and all that. But I mean, I'm very familiar with him now, and I mean, he's game. He's game. He's very good everywhere. Has one of the best wrestling in the division, and has dynamite on that left hand. So and that left rear kick. So really excited for this fight, and I'm sure he is also fighting in front of his entire crowd.
Yeah, and I know he was like pretty close to the Olympics, and when the Olympics in 2020 got delayed, he just decided to go into MMA full time. Like, so obviously he's a very high level wrestler. Like, I know you're a very good wrestler yourself. Like, how do you think your kind of wrestling matches up? Because American style wrestling and like what a lot of other wrestlers do are like pretty different.
Uh, Well, with him, I think my experience will come into play. I mean, I know he was, like a prodigy wrestler, and he basically trained his entire life to go into those Olympics that got canceled. So I mean, what was that, 2020? So he just started training mid 2020, which would be 3 years now. Um, I mean, it's 3 years. I mean, I'm sure, and this kid's like a phenomenal athlete. One of his kind. He's elite athlete. So 3 years can be a long time, but then again, at the same time, it's I've been boxing for about 10.
Mhm.
I've been doing jiu-jitsu for about 10. So I'm hoping I can just nullify his wrestling.
And going out to Singapore, like, how do you kind of deal with that with the weight cut and like the time change and all of
Mm.
that stuff? Because you're gonna be fighting at an odd time on the States, and like, I know you kind of keep water more when you're on a flight. Like, how do you kind of deal with that?
Um, well, I'm gonna go like around 10 days before the fight. I don't know if that'll be enough. Hopefully that's enough to get used to the time change and all. But also a whole week before I leave to Singapore, I'm gonna switch my sleeping schedule as well. I'll be sleeping during the day and I'll be training throughout the night and kind of switch it to give me an extra week of that. So for a whole week I'll be doing that, and then 10 days over there I'll be switching as well. So I'm just hoping it's. I've never had a hard time making weight. I've always made 35. So I don't expect it to be a problem. I don't. I know it's a big deal with the long flight, almost 20-hour flight and all that, but um, I'll make the weight.
And going out there with Ryan, like, how nice is that to have a teammate out there on the card going that far with someone that you know?
I mean, it's a whole world of a difference. I thought I was gonna have to go by myself, but having a teammate to fight with, where you guys are going both through hell in camp and both killing each other in camp and both making all these big sacrifices in camp and going through it together and having to go together to Singapore and compete together on the same night. It is just so helpful. It's such a beautiful thing to get to share that with one of your teammates. Plus, he gets, I take some of my teammates, he takes some of his teammates. So, we're all stacked over there. We'll have a full team over there.
And then with this one, like, how much pressure is on you going into this fight? Just having lost the two UFC fights, like, do you think this could be fighting for your job here?
Oh, 100%. I thought I was fighting for my job, my last fight, and that didn't go my way. So I'm just really happy that they gave me another opportunity to show what I'm really about. I think it has to do with that. They just kind of know that I haven't been able to show what I can do in there. I had big expectations when I got signed. Coming from from I was very successful in the regional scene and had very exciting fights, and I haven't been able to show that in the UFC. But I think they know I'll be able to prove it in this fight. I'm such a different fighter. I know everybody says that, but since my last fight with Brady, I'm such a different fighter, mentally, physically. Um, I mean, I'm not losing in practice. I'm not losing any rounds. I'm not losing in the boxing gym. I'm not losing at the jiu-jitsu gym. I'm not losing anywhere. And fights tend to go how your training is going. Something I learned late in my career. Usually, for my first camps or so, I would lose here and there in training, and I would think, well, that's not gonna happen in the fight. You hear that, this and that, just be cocky about it. But you get to learn that however training goes, that's what's gonna happen in the fight. That's something that Coach Safe always tells us, and I finally realized that. I'm not even from my last fight. I thought I was better in my last fight as well, but I was still kind of losing here and there in the gym. But this time around, it's just so different. I'm not giving up any takedowns. For 20 minutes straight, I'm not losing any rounds at all.
And then going out to Singapore, like who is gonna fly with you? Because obviously that is a big ask, getting people to go that far across the world out there.
Well, Ramiz Brahimash, I've been training with him a lot and working my jiu-jitsu and takedown defense with him. So he's in a flat with me. I don't know if you know him,
Yep.
Ramiz, 170 in the UFC. So he's in a flat with me, and of course, Coach Safe, and I mean, just trying to expand. He's taking a couple guys. I think I'm not sure who else he's taking, but just for now, Ramiz and Coach Safe will be up there with me.
Are you planning on like sticking around there a bit later and like sightsee, or is it just basically go straight home after?
Yeah, I have my return flight for Tuesday.
Yeah.
So, that'll give me an extra couple of days. And I'll be there for 10 days before, but I'm not the type to kind of go explore before a fight. I know there's a lot of things to explore, but I'm not really in the mood. I mean, I'm not like I'm grumpy in fight week, but, I'm just not in the mindset of going and sightseeing and exploring new things. So I'll do that after the fight. It'll give me around 2, 3 days to do so, which I'm actually really excited.
And then with this one, like you look at a lot of Nakamura's fights, a lot of early finishes, like especially the road to the UFC was that. Like, what do you make
Uh,
away from that? Because there it is like there's kind of two ways to take it. Like obviously he has a ton of finishing ability, but then like there is a thought of like what happens if he doesn't go his way and like he starts losing. We've never really seen him face any adversity in fights.
Yeah, I was thinking that at the beginning. I'm like, you know what? He just comes out sprinting, and once he's done sprinting, I think he's gonna slow down. But then again, I got it into my mind that he fights like that because he can keep that up for 15 minutes, and that's why he's fighting like that. So that's the Renia I'm training for. I'm training for a Renia that can keep up that crazy wild sprint for 15 minutes. But I'll tell you what, if he comes out swinging like that with me and saves my face the entire fight, I'll be the luckiest man in the world. If he wants to, stay in the pocket and trade with me, which he usually does in all his fights, he doesn't really use his wrestling, Olympic level wrestling. But I promise you, if he stands there and starts trading with me in the pocket, he's gonna go back to his wrestling really quick.
How do you kind of see it playing out? Like obviously on the regional scene, a lot of like I know on the contender series, like you showed off the power, but you have the ability to go
I
15
think
hard
he's
minutes.
gonna. I think he's gonna come out very confident, just due to my two lackluster fights in the UFC. If you go in there and watch, say if I didn't know myself and I go watch my two fights in the UFC, you're kind of just gonna go at me. You're gonna go stay in my face and then try to break me, which I didn't have two good fights in the UFC. So I think he's gonna come in very confident and very cocky, thinking he can stay in my face and outbox me or basically do whatever he can with me. But I promise you, it's not gonna happen. I think the fight's gonna go. I think he's gonna come at me and try to sprint at me with this fury of punches. And once he gets countered a couple times, he's gonna go back to his wrestling and try to take me down or pin me against a cage and make it a boring fight, which seems to be the only way these guys can beat me.
Hey, has it been frustrating for you, your UFC career, where like you think you aren't showing like what you can in there? Like, is that frustrating for you?
Yeah, after my Brady fight, it just became it just consumes my life. Just kind of be like, this might be it. I could have been released after that Brady fight, and it just consumed my entire life. Like thinking it took me 10 or 15 years working for this goal, and it all got taken away from me so fast. Without being able to show what I'm about. I mean, if those two losses would have been, fight of the nights, or usually how my fights go, and I did my best, then I would have been in peace and happy with my career. But the fact that I don't think I showed 30-40% of what I'm capable of, and I'm aware that I'm facing tougher competition, but it doesn't change the fact that I have not performed at the best of my abilities. And if you've seen my regional fights and even against Josh Williams, the contender, in practice, like I've not performed not even 40 or 50% of my abilities, and I think Fernie will bump into a Fernie that is rocking in all cylinders.
Why do you think you haven't been able to fight the way you expect yourself to?
No, I, I don't know. I don't really think too much of it. I know my first fight, I was 100% confident that I was going to beat Journey. I got lost, I guess, in the lights, in the big cage, and my debut or whatever, and it just got taken away from me. So I, regrouped, didn't change much, thinking it was just my debut, and I had to, butterflies or whatever, and I was going to come out the second fight and win without making a whole lot of changes, and basically the same thing happened. The second fight was a little different. I made a mistake the third round that cost me the fight, but other than that, it was a pretty even fight. But now, I feel like such a more mature fighter. Mentally, I'm so ready to fight anyone. I'm glad I'm fighting right now. When usually I'd be like, well, like annoyed or like, oh, I'm fighting this good guy. Like I'm glad he's undefeated. I'm glad he has all these knockouts, like 95% knockout rate. I'm glad everybody thinks he's gonna, smoke me. I'm glad he's a big favorite. I'm glad we're in his hometown. All this, it just motivates me, and I'm just 100% sure that I'll finally be able to prove what I'm about.
Do you think the UFC is almost kind of bringing you in to lose here? Like they want this, obviously the road to UFC, they're trying to promote it. This is the winner, like he's fighting close to home. Like, do you think
I
there is
mean,
a sense of that?
yes and no. I mean, that's how the sport goes. I know when I was coming off the contender, they had big expectations for me, and they gave me Journey, which was coming off two losses, and I was thinking, people were saying the same thing about him, like, well, they want Journey out, so they're feeding him to you or whatever, and I ended up losing. So yes and no, because they've been releasing a lot of fighters coming off two losses, so they didn't release me, so at least they're giving me a third chance, and I mean, I'm sure they know he's a big favorite, but I I just know that Sean Shelby knows what I can do. I know he knows that I have power, and I know he knows that if Rainier comes at me the way he comes at people, he's gonna get in real trouble. So I think it's a test for him more than it is for me, and I think it's gonna be a very good test for him.
Uh, you beat Nakamura. Like, what do you think that does for you? Like, handing him his first loss, like, obviously saves your job. Like, what do you think
Oh
that does for your
man,
motivation?
man, I don't even want to think about that. I think about that all day. That I just don't even want to talk about it. That's all I'm thinking about. Changing my career and starting at 0-2 has been pretty draining. So winning in Singapore against an undefeated prospect in front of his hometown or whatever, uh, it would mean the world to me. I'm ready to get my career started in the UFC and go on my run.
And just final thing, like, do you see you do get your hand raised? Like, do you imagine this is probably if you do this year, like end of August, or are you hoping you can probably get one more in?
No, man, I'm ready to go. I mean, I would want to fight on that September 16th card, and with all the Mexican, I'm probably the only Mexican not on that card, so I'd be ready to go. I mean, of course, if I don't take any damage, but if it all comes as planned, I'm not gonna take any damage. Get the W and hopefully get on put on that September 16th card. A couple weeks later. I'm not
Well,
trying to wait. I'm trying. I'm I just turned 31 years old. I'm ready to just fight, and I think I'm the best version of myself, and I'm better than I've ever been. So I'm just ready to fight.
Fernie, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this again.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.